I'm not a famous actress. I'm not the famous type. I really am a mom who cooked for her family.
Ree Drummond, from small-town roots to national icon. Ree Drummond, better known to millions as the Pioneer Woman, is far more than a celebrity chef or television personality. She is a symbol of reinvention, resilience, and the quiet power of authenticity in an age obsessed with spectacle. Her story is not one of overnight success or curated perfection. It is a journey carved through grit, reinvention, and a deep-rooted love for family and community. Born and raised in the wide-open landscapes of Oklahoma, Ree's early years were shaped by the rugged simplicity of rural life. It was a childhood grounded in dust roads, church Sundays, and hard-earned values, far removed from the glitz of Hollywood or the glamour of high-profile culinary careers. But beneath that seemingly quiet existence burned a spirit of curiosity, intelligence, and creative ambition. She would one day channel those qualities into something extraordinary, reinventing the American dream, one blog post at a time. Before she was a media powerhouse, Ree was a young woman with big city dreams. After graduating from the University of Southern California with aspirations of becoming a lawyer, her life took an unexpected turn. A chance encounter with Lad Drummond, a rugged cowboy from her home state, changed everything. What began as a romance turned into a lifelong partnership, one that would anchor her in the very place she once thought she'd leave behind. Settling on the Drummond Ranch, Ree faced a seismic shift. From city lights to cattle gates, from espresso bars to branding irons. But instead of resisting the change, she embraced it. And then she wrote about it. What began as a simple blog in 2006 soon became a national sensation. The Pioneer Woman, originally a personal journal about ranch life, motherhood, and home cooking, quickly struck a chord with readers across America. Her tone was unfiltered, warm, and refreshingly real. People didn't just come for the recipes. They came for Ree's voice, her wit, her honesty, and her ability to find joy in the everyday chaos of rural family life. Building a media empire without losing her soul, Ree's blog became the foundation for a sprawling media empire. Cookbooks followed, then a Food Network television show, then branded merchandise, partnerships with major retailers, and eventually physical businesses like the Mercantile, a restaurant, bakery, and general store in Pawhuska, Oklahoma, that has revitalized the local economy and turned a small town into a national tourist destination. But unlike many who scale up and burn out, Ree Drummond has managed to keep her brand intimate. She didn't outsource her voice or abandon her roots. Whether she's cooking in front of a camera or sharing a heartfelt anecdote about her kids, she speaks to her audience like an old friend, never condescending, never scripted. She walks the fine line between public persona and private life with remarkable finesse. Her content is aspirational but never unattainable. Her kitchen may be spotless, but she never pretends it stays that way for long. The woman behind the apron. What makes Ree Drummond compelling isn't just what she creates, it's who she is. She is a mother of 4, a wife to a 5th-generation cattle rancher, and a businesswoman who never lets success overshadow substance. She's battled exhaustion, juggled multiple businesses, and navigated personal hardships, including her husband's serious accident in 2021, with unwavering grace. Yet through it all, she remains grounded, honest, and endlessly relatable. Her story resonates because it's rooted in reality. She didn't stumble into success by accident. She worked for it, grew with it, and constantly adapted to it. From writing blog posts at her kitchen table to managing one of the most recognizable lifestyle brands in America, Ree has done it all without losing the qualities that made her beloved in the first place: warmth, wit, and work ethic. Redefining success on her own terms. In a media landscape dominated by fast fame and viral moments, Ree Drummond represents something rare, a long game. She's proof that you don't have to shout to be heard, that sincerity can be as powerful as strategy, and that it's possible to build an empire without selling your soul. Her influence extends beyond the food she cooks. She has inspired a generation of women, homemakers, mothers, entrepreneurs, and dreamers, to find power in their own narratives. She's shown that success doesn't require you to leave home. Sometimes it's waiting for you right there in the middle of nowhere, next to the people you love, under the same sky you've always known. From childhood chores to culinary calling. Long before the cameras, cookbooks, and celebrity status, Ree Drummond was just a curious little girl in a small Oklahoma kitchen. Her earliest memories are not of glamorous TV studios, but of helping her mother prepare simple family meals, peeling vegetables, stirring sauces, and learning, without even realizing it, the rhythms of home cooking. These moments, seemingly mundane, would plant the seeds for a culinary journey that would one day captivate millions. There were no formal lessons, no gourmet ingredients, and certainly no culinary school credentials. What Ree gained instead was something far more powerful: intuition. She learned to cook the way most great home chefs do, by doing, by watching, by tasting. Her childhood kitchen wasn't a classroom, it was a proving ground. But Ree's path to culinary fame wasn't linear. In fact, it took several detours, academic, geographic, and personal, before it ever pointed back toward food. A city dreamer turned ranch wife. After graduating from high school, Ree left Oklahoma behind for Los Angeles, where she pursued a degree at the University of Southern California. At the time, she imagined her future unfolding in the heart of a bustling city, law school, high-rises, and a very different kind of recipe for success. But fate had other plans. Just months before she was set to move to Chicago for law school, Ree met Lad Drummond, the tall, soft-spoken cowboy who would change the course of her life forever. Their whirlwind romance culminated in marriage, and soon after, Ree found herself not in a courtroom but on a remote cattle ranch, surrounded by prairie instead of pavement. At first, it was a culture shock. She went from cosmopolitan coffee shops to feeding cowboys at sunrise. But rather than resist the shift, Ree embraced it. And once again, she turned to the kitchen, turning the ordinary into a national obsession. The early years of marriage and motherhood were filled with challenges. Raising 4 children while adapting to ranch life would have been enough to overwhelm most. But for Ree, these years became a crucible of creativity. One day in 2006, she began writing about her life on a blog. It started as a way to share updates with family and friends, snippets about homeschooling, cattle roundups, and the quirky beauty of rural life. But when she started posting recipes, something clicked. Readers responded not just to the food, but to her. Her voice was funny, self-deprecating, and disarmingly honest. She wrote about kitchen disasters, about trying to keep up with her kids, about accidentally burning dinner while helping with algebra homework. In an internet full of polished perfection, Ree offered something far more relatable, a portrait of real life with all its mess and magic. And the audience grew, fast, cooking up an empire. Within just a few years, the Pioneer Woman blog had evolved into a full-blown brand. Ree's recipes, from comfort food classics like chicken fried steak to decadent desserts like chocolate sheet cake, became staples in American households. Her cookbooks topped bestseller lists. Her appearances on talk shows and cooking segments made her a national personality. Eventually, the Food Network came calling, and Ree brought her fans into her home, literally. Her television show was filmed on location at the Drummond Ranch, offering viewers an intimate, unfiltered look into her family's daily life. It was a far cry from the sterile studio kitchens of other cooking shows. It felt authentic. It was authentic. And behind every pie crust and pot roast was a story. About motherhood, about marriage, about memory. Food wasn't just nourishment. It was narrative. A detour through doubt, the years that nearly went unwritten. Ree Drummond's path to success was anything but straight. After earning her degree at the University of Southern California, she didn't return immediately to Oklahoma. Instead, she set her sights on big city dreams. She envisioned a life in law or media, perhaps even publishing, something ambitious, polished, and far from the cattle pastures of her childhood. But reality was more complicated. She found herself navigating the vast and often indifferent landscape of urban life, unsure of her next step. For years, she worked odd jobs, lived modestly, and wrestled with a lingering sense of displacement. Despite her education and ambition, stability felt just out of reach. She wasn't yet a household name, not even close. And while she had a natural talent for cooking, she hadn't yet imagined that it could be a career, let alone a calling. These were the years of quiet searching. She tried to find her voice, her purpose, and a version of herself that made sense in a world that didn't always feel like home. But sometimes, the most profound clarity comes not from planning, but from letting go. Love, land, and an unexpected life. When Ree returned to Oklahoma for what was supposed to be a brief visit, everything changed. She met Lad Drummond, the man she would eventually call the Marlboro Man on her blog. And within months, her entire trajectory shifted. She didn't move back to the city. She didn't pursue law school. Instead, she married into one of Oklahoma's most established ranching families and began a new chapter as a ranch wife and young mother in the middle of nowhere. To some, it might have looked like she gave up her ambitions, but in reality, it was the beginning of something far more meaningful. Finding her voice in the middle of nowhere ranch life wasn't glamorous. Days started before sunrise. Cattle had to be fed, children had to be homeschooled, and her once urban lifestyle was replaced with mud-caked boots and home-cooked meals. But in the stillness of rural life, Ree Drummond discovered a voice that would soon resonate across the country. She began documenting her life online, not for fame, but for connection. Her writing was sharp, funny, deeply personal, and always grounded in truth. She didn't glamorize the ranch. She told the story exactly as it was, unpredictable, exhausting, occasionally chaotic, but always full of love. When she began sharing her recipes, hearty, rustic meals she made for her family, something clicked with readers. They didn't just want to cook what she cooked. They wanted to live how she lived, or at least experience it through her lens. And slowly, one post at a time, the woman who once struggled to find her place in the world of cooking was building a culinary kingdom from the ground up. Love, support, and the courage to dream. Despite the setbacks and uncertainty, Ree Drummond's passion for cooking never faded. In moments of doubt, she returned to the kitchen, her sanctuary, her creative space, and, unknowingly, her future stage. There, among pots, pans, and the scent of butter and bread, she found the one constant in her life: food made with love. But it wasn't just culinary skill that carried her forward. It was belief, an unwavering belief in herself, in her voice, and in the idea that a simple homegrown story could resonate far beyond her own kitchen. The turning point came not on a career path, but in a chance meeting with Lad Drummond. Lad wasn't part of the life she thought she was building. A fifth-generation cattle rancher with calloused hands and a quiet disposition, he lived a life she once saw herself leaving behind. But something clicked. Their connection was undeniable, rooted in contrast and chemistry. He wasn't just a romantic partner, he became her anchor, and more importantly, he believed in her. The foundation of a shared life. From the moment they began their life together, Lad supported Ree's dreams, even when they didn't look like traditional success. Whether it was cooking for a house full of hungry kids and cowboys, or tinkering with her first blog posts during nap time, he stood beside her, never demanding the spotlight, but always encouraging her to shine. It wasn't about opening a fancy restaurant in the city or landing a network deal. At first, her dream was far simpler: to share her life, her food, and her voice with others. And from the very beginning, Ladd made space for that dream, not by pushing her forward, but by holding steady while she found her way. This deep partnership would become the emotional and practical bedrock of what would soon become one of the most recognizable lifestyle brands in America. From a kitchen table to a national brand, what began as a personal blog evolved into an empire, not overnight, but through slow, steady growth powered by authenticity. Ree didn't try to be what she wasn't. She wrote like she cooked, with warmth, humility, and a hint of humor. The readers came, then the publishers, then the Food Network. All the while, Ladd was there, fixing fences, raising cattle, and raising kids, allowing Ree to focus on what she did best: telling stories and feeding hearts as well as bellies. The opening of the Mercantile in Pawhuska, a restaurant, bakery, and store, was not just a business venture. It was the physical manifestation of the dream Ree once whispered in uncertainty. And it was only possible because she had built a life rooted in purpose, supported by a partner who never needed applause to be proud. A taste of the West, served with heart. Opening their own restaurant wasn't just a business decision. It was the next step in a shared vision. Together, Ree and Ladd Drummond transformed their family's working ranch into something more than a home. They turned it into a destination, a place where visitors could not only taste Ree's beloved recipes, but also immerse themselves in the authentic rhythms of the American West. The Mercantile, nestled in the heart of Pawhuska, Oklahoma, was the first major step. With its vintage charm and down-home hospitality, it wasn't designed to compete with big city fine dining. Instead, it offered comfort: cinnamon rolls fresh from the oven, plates of chicken fried steak, stacks of pancakes, and the kind of warmth that only comes from real people cooking real food. But the experience extended far beyond the plate. With exposed brick walls, repurposed century-old furnishings, and sweeping views of cattle country, the Drummonds' vision captured something deeper: a longing for simplicity, tradition, and genuine connection. Visitors flocked from every corner of the country, not just to eat, but to witness the world of the pioneer woman come to life. The birth of a lifestyle brand. What started with a blog and a few handwritten recipes had now evolved into a full-blown cultural phenomenon. With the Mercantile thriving, Ree expanded the brand even further. There were cookbooks, each one a New York Times bestseller. There were kitchen product lines sold in major retailers like Walmart. There was even a boutique hotel and an ice cream parlor, all based in Pawhuska, that turned the small town into an unexpected tourism hub. And yet, for all the expansion, nothing about Ree Drummond felt artificial or mass-produced. That was her magic. Every business venture stayed rooted in her identity as a wife, a mother, a storyteller, and a rancher's partner. Unlike many public figures, she didn't outsource the soul of her brand. She was the brand. Every dish, every anecdote, every laugh shared with her audience came from a deeply personal place. And people felt that. They trusted her. The journey becomes a movement. Ree's success wasn't just measured in television ratings or sales figures. It was measured in moments: the family road trips inspired by her blog, the mother-daughter cooking nights sparked by her recipes, the tourists who made pilgrimages to Oklahoma just to feel for a moment like they were part of something real. She didn't just build a brand, she built a movement, a reminder that rural life, often overlooked or misunderstood, held beauty, value, and depth. That a small-town woman with a camera and a recipe book could change the conversation about food, family, and fame, blogging her way into America's heart. Though Ree Drummond had already built a rich and fulfilling life on the ranch, true national recognition didn't come through television or cookbooks. Not at first. It came from something far simpler yet profoundly impactful: a blog. In 2006, with 4 kids underfoot and a ranch to help run, Ree launched The Pioneer Woman, an online diary where she could share stories from her life. At first, it was just for fun, a way to document her journey, connect with other moms, and maybe share a few recipes. But it didn't take long before the blog found an audience, and then exploded. Her posts were relatable and refreshingly unfiltered. There were no pretensions, no food-styled illusions. Just simple, hearty, home-cooked meals paired with heartfelt stories, self-deprecating humor, and a sense of intimacy that made every reader feel like they'd pulled up a chair at her kitchen table. Ree's recipes, from her famous Marlboro Man sandwich to crowd-pleasers like lasagna, chocolate sheet cake, and potato casserole, weren't about reinventing the wheel. They were about comfort, accessibility, and the joy of feeding people. And her step-by-step photography style, showing each stage of the cooking process, made it easy for beginners to follow and for busy parents to feel confident in the kitchen. A digital star with a down-home soul. But the blog wasn't just a collection of recipes. It was a window into a life many didn't realize they craved. One filled with laughter, love, occasional chaos, and a deep connection to the land. Ree wrote about homeschooling, ranch mishaps, parenting triumphs and fails, and the ever-growing demands of a bustling household. What set her apart was not just her writing, it was her voice. Honest, funny, and deeply human, she became the digital best friend readers didn't know they needed. Her posts were sometimes poetic, sometimes laugh-out-loud funny, and always real, and the numbers spoke for themselves. Within a few short years, The Pioneer Woman became one of the most visited personal blogs in the United States, attracting millions of readers each month. Media outlets took notice. Book deals followed. Then came the television offers. What had started as a quiet project between nap time and dinner prep had transformed Ree into a national figure, a woman who had built an empire with nothing more than a laptop, a camera, and a knack for telling stories that stuck. A community built on casseroles and connection. What made the Pioneer Woman blog stand out wasn't just the recipes. It was the voice behind them. Ree Drummond's generous servings of humor and heartfelt storytelling, mixed with step-by-step photos and practical cooking tips, quickly won the hearts of millions. Her kitchen didn't feel like a studio set. It felt like home. And her readers weren't passive consumers. They were participants in something larger. As word spread, her corner of the internet became more than just a food blog. It evolved into a living, breathing community. People from all walks of life, young mothers, seasoned home cooks, aspiring writers, and curious city dwellers, flocked to her site not just to learn how to make mashed potatoes or cinnamon rolls, but to feel a sense of belonging. In the comment sections and forums, readers swapped recipes, traded tips, and shared their own stories of parenting, heartbreak, celebration, and hope. Ree became the heart of a digital village. A leader not because she demanded attention, but because she offered warmth, consistency, and a reminder that joy could be found in the simplest of things: a cup of coffee, a homemade pie, a well-lived day. The power of relatable fame. Unlike many lifestyle influencers who craft carefully curated versions of their lives, Ree didn't pretend to be perfect. She talked openly about burning food, wrangling messy toddlers, and struggling with the ups and downs of ranch life. Her transparency became her superpower. People didn't just like Ree, they trusted her. She wasn't aspirational in a way that felt distant. She was inspirational in a way that felt reachable. This relatability made her one of the first true internet stars who built her empire not on shock value or virality, but on authenticity. Brands noticed, publishers noticed, and television executives began circling. What had started as a humble blog now had the momentum of a cultural movement. Humble at heart, despite the spotlight. Despite her meteoric rise to fame, With millions of followers, best-selling cookbooks, a hit television series, and a sprawling business empire, Ree Drummond has remained remarkably grounded. For all the glamour that now surrounds the Pioneer Woman brand, the woman behind it continues to embody the same warmth, humility, and approachability that first drew people to her blog. She still makes time for what matters most: family dinners, quiet mornings on the porch, school milestones, and ranch life's unpredictable rhythm. She is, at her core, a mother, a wife, a neighbor, the kind of person who brings a casserole when someone's sick and remembers birthdays without being reminded. Friends and fans alike describe her as someone who hasn't let success distort her values. Fame may have broadened her reach, but it hasn't changed her compass. Staying true to her roots, the heart of Ree Drummond. In an age where social media often rewards curated perfection and fleeting trends, Ree Drummond remains an outlier, a woman who has built a powerful media empire without ever abandoning the values that shaped her. From her earliest blog posts to her nationally televised cooking show, The Pioneer Woman, one thing has remained constant: authenticity. And that authenticity is no performance. It is the bedrock of everything she does. Whether she's being interviewed by national outlets, posting a candid story about a kitchen mishap, or sharing a simple photograph of sunrise on the ranch, Ree offers her audience something increasingly rare: realness. She doesn't follow the latest social media challenges or adapt her brand to suit the demands of virality. She doesn't jump on fads. She honors where she comes from and what she believes in: simplicity, family, hard work, and the kind of joy that lives in the little things. For Ree, Pawhuska, Oklahoma, isn't just a setting, it's part of her soul. The red dirt roads, the wind that rolls across the prairie, the smell of livestock in the early morning air, the creak of a screen door opening before sunrise. These aren't romantic notions. They're her reality. The Drummond Ranch isn't a rustic backdrop designed for television aesthetics. It's her home, her workplace, and the heart of her storytelling. Her audience may span the globe, but Ree has never tried to become someone she's not to cater to them. Her version of fame has always looked different. It's not red carpets and high fashion. It's not celebrity endorsements or a high-rise in Manhattan. It's boots in the mud, hands in flour, laughter around a worn wooden table, and heartfelt moments shared through a blog that still feels intimate, even with millions of readers. As the Pioneer Woman brand expanded, from cookware lines at Walmart to a boutique hotel and restaurant in Pawhuska, many wondered if success would change her. Would the humble ranch mom be replaced by a corporate persona? Would the storytelling get lost in the merchandising? The answer, resoundingly, has been no. Even with a growing team, more TV airtime, and shelves of product lines, Ree has remained deeply involved in every aspect of her brand. She still writes. She still photographs her food. She still tells stories about her family, her ranch animals, her trials, and her triumphs. Not because a marketing team tells her to, but because it's who she is. And it's why her audience stays. There's a quiet consistency in Ree's world that speaks volumes. Her brand isn't just about recipes or products. It's about trust. And that trust has been earned, not manufactured. Her fans, many of whom have been following her for over a decade, don't just see her as a TV personality. They see her as a friend, a sister, a fellow parent, a woman who figured out how to turn a very ordinary life into something extraordinary by embracing it instead of running from it. A legacy that goes far beyond the kitchen. To define Ree Drummond's legacy by food alone would be a disservice to the magnitude of her influence. Yes, she taught millions how to make creamy mashed potatoes and the perfect cinnamon roll. But more importantly, she redefined what it means to be a modern homemaker, a digital entrepreneur, and a small-town visionary in the 21st century. Before Ree, the idea of a woman blogging from a ranch kitchen, with no media training, no culinary degree, and no formal business background, becoming a national figure would have sounded far-fetched. But Ree proved that success isn't reserved for those with the right connections or an urban zip code. She became a pioneer in her own right, showing that a home kitchen could be a media platform, a blog could become a business, and motherhood could fuel rather than limit creative ambition. Perhaps what resonates most deeply is her unapologetic embrace of who she is. In every book she's written, every blog post she's published, every show she's filmed, Ree has reminded her audience, especially women, that they don't need to shrink themselves, reinvent themselves, or chase someone else's version of success. They can build their own version right where they are with what they already have. In a world that too often undervalues domestic life and dismisses the voices of women who choose it, Ree Drummond has turned that narrative on its head. She's shown that cooking a meal, raising children, tending a ranch, and sharing your story can be powerful acts of creativity, connection, and leadership. Her legacy is not just a best-selling cookbook. It's the confidence she's sparked in millions of readers to pick up a pen, to pick up a spatula, to pick up their lives and see the beauty in the mess. She didn't just build a brand. She built a movement rooted in gratitude, storytelling, and the belief that home is not a limitation. It's a launch pad. And that's why, even after all the awards, accolades, and appearances, Ree Drummond still feels like someone you know. Because she never stopped being the woman in the kitchen, with a messy bun, a wooden spoon, and a story worth sharing.